When watching Chinese films, one invariably notices the frequent consumption of noodles, often ordered right in the bustling street stalls. While noodles are certainly eaten in Vietnam, the frequency and devotion seen in China are on a completely different scale. In many regions, particularly across the northern parts of China, entire generations have subsisted primarily on noodles, a routine of noodles for breakfast, noodles for lunch, and noodles for dinner. Yet the human palate resists such rigid monotony indefinitely. To combat this, cooks began an ingenious process of incremental change. Today, the noodles might be pulled strands. Tomorrow, the broth might be completely new. The day after, they might be served mixed and dry. And on yet another day, the topping would be reinvented. This constant subtle evolution, iterated over centuries, is precisely how one base ingredient fragmented into hundreds of distinct dishes. But why this intense focus on noodles, giving rise to hundreds, if not thousands, of unique variations? To truly grasp the breadth of China's noodle universe, one must start not with history or culture, but with the fundamental force that shapes everything: geography, the earth, the water, and the climate. China sprawls across an immense area of over 9.6 million square kilometers. It is impossible for a population spanning such dramatic climatic zones to maintain a uniform diet. Specifically, the north-south axis of China constitutes two entirely different worlds. Winters in the north can plunge to tens of degrees below freezing, burying the ground in heavy snow and unleashing winds that sting the face. Simultaneously, the south enjoys far milder conditions, characterized by persistent fog, gentle drizzles, and year-round lush greenery. The temperature disparity is not a slight 5 or 6 degrees, but often exceeds 30 degrees Celsius. This dramatic climatic division dictates a consequential factor. The crops cultivated are completely dissimilar. In the arid, cold, and windswept northern plains, wheat reigns supreme. Majority of North China shares a common environmental profile: low rainfall, extended winters, dry soil, and limited irrigation resources. Under such challenging conditions, wet rice cultivation struggles immensely, but wheat, Triticum aestivum, flourishes. Withstands the cold, demands significantly less water, and can thrive even in fields with less than ideal soil fertility, often characteristic of the Loess Plateau regions. Once the harvest is complete, the natural question arises: what is the most practical use for this wheat? The answer is simple and direct. It is milled into flour. And the most efficient way to utilize wheat flour is through mixing, kneading, sheeting, pulling, and cutting. Thus, the noodle was born. From this foundation, a pervasive wheat flour civilization took root across the entire North. This culinary universe encompasses everything from noodles served in broth to dry-tossed noodles, from meticulously hand-pulled lamian to robust, knife-cut daoxiaomian, and even includes steamed breads like baozi and mantu. In these regions, people consume noodles as their primary staple. It is their rice. Noodles are not an accompaniment. They are the main event. Meat, vegetables, and sauce are mere complements designed to dress the essential starch. Crucially, the viscoelastic nature of wheat flour permits almost infinite manipulation. Simply adjusting the water content, the force of the kneading, or the duration of the resting period alters the final texture of the strand dramatically. This inherent flexibility made North China the true cradle of the noodle, where every province, every town, and often every village developed its own fiercely guarded technique. The South, conversely, is characterized by heat, humidity, and abundant water, making it the undisputed domain of wet rice. Southern China is a tapestry of rivers, lakes, and frequent rainfall. The climate is subtropical, winters are brief, and the soil is consistently moist. These are the optimal conditions for rice cultivation. When rice is the dominant crop, the culinary philosophy shifts entirely. Unlike wheat, milled rice does not yield a dry, highly elastic flour, but a fine, wet slurry. This form of starch is notoriously difficult to knead, pull, or sheet into traditional elastic noodles. Instead, the process involves soaking, grinding, filtering, steaming, pressing, and then cutting. The result is an alternative culinary world, the universe of rice vermicelli, bun, mi gao, rice sticks, and various delicate strands, sometimes even reminiscent of pho. These rice-based strands are typically white, soft, smooth, and possess minimal elasticity. They are perfectly suited to the hot climate, light, easy to digest, and less likely to cause a heavy, sluggish feeling after consumption. This explains why the noodles of the South differ fundamentally from those of the North. The fascinating reality is that these two worlds rarely intersect. A northern Chinese accustomed to the hearty, chewy texture of wheat flour often finds rice noodles unsatisfying, lacking the necessary bite to feel full. Conversely, Southerners find the dense, heavy texture of wheat-based noodles slightly indigestible in their humid environment. It is not a matter of quality, but of a physiological affinity developed through generations of eating the food native to one's climate. Two parallel noodle universes thus coexist in China, simply based on the fundamental starch, wheat flour versus rice flour. China naturally separated into two massive culinary traditions that have operated in tandem for millennia without merging. For the North, noodles must be substantial, chewy, and sustain fullness for hours. For the South, noodles must be slick, light, easily digestible, and gentle on the stomach. Neither approach is superior. Geography compelled these outcomes. The influence of geography extends beyond the soil to the seemingly invisible element of water, which plays a pivotal role in defining the final noodle texture. Water composition varies drastically across China, and this variation directly impacts the dough. Where water is rich in minerals, the flour develops stronger gluten chains, allowing the dough to be stretched and pulled successfully into long strands. Where the water is naturally soft, the dough will be weaker and prone to breaking. Naturally alkaline water imparts a distinctive yellow hue and a unique flavor to the strands, often eliminating the need for added leavening agents. Turning back the clock several thousand years reveals that ancient China was not always the opulent society depicted in historical dramas. It was a world characterized by large populations, scarce resources, constant warfare, successive dynastic collapses, and famine as a cyclical reality. And from this history of scarcity, noodles were further refined. In this relentless struggle for survival, the immediate concern was not pleasure or elegance, but the existential question, what can we eat today to avoid starvation and survive to the next day? Noodles answered this call perfectly, emerging not as a gourmet dish, but as a pragmatic tool for subsistence. A simple bowl of noodles is fundamentally an extremely efficient solution. The complex carbohydrates from wheat or rice release energy slowly, providing a sustained sense of fullness and helping people endure long periods of hunger. Noodles are easy and quick to prepare. They require only boiling water, minimal skill, and little wait time. Crucially, they consume very little fuel, an essential consideration in eras when firewood and coal were precious commodities. Furthermore, noodles possess a decisive advantage. They are endlessly adaptable. If meat is available, add it. If vegetables are plentiful, include them. There is nothing but salt and soy sauce that suffices. In the leanest years of famine, people could subsist on plain noodles, just flour and water, to simply stay alive. In times of war and mass displacement, noodles offered another distinct logistic benefit: ease of transport. Dry flour could be packed onto backs, tied to horses, or loaded onto carts. Wherever migrating armies settled, they only needed to find water to cook immediately. Thus, every migrating army, every wave of refugees, carried with it flour and its own unique method of noodle making. Upon arriving in a new territory, everything shifted. Old ingredients vanished, new resources appeared, the water changed, and local palates adjusted. The Chinese developed a mindset very early on that considered a bowl of noodles a complete, self-contained meal. In this philosophical view, the noodle is never lonely. A proper bowl must contain starch for energy, protein for strength, vegetables for balance, and the warmth of spices to stimulate the appetite. The noodle in Chinese history was not born of abundance. It was born of profound scarcity. It is not a food of indulgence, but a fundamental instrument of survival. Because it has carried the immense burden of sustaining life for thousands of years, the noodle has been compelled to constantly evolve. Each variation we observe today bears a new name, but at its root, every dish began with the simple primal query, what can we eat today to live to see tomorrow? Foreign observers often wonder why such simple food has hundreds of names. But to the Chinese, each bowl represents an entirely different universe. The answer is not rooted in leisure, but in deep necessity. The noodle is the core staple food. Every single strand of noodle is the material result of human adaptation to survive and thrive. This is why China boasts hundreds, perhaps thousands, of profoundly different types of noodles.